This is the Authentic Alpha podcast, and I'm here with Wolf Soriano, and this is Baylee Boomhauer.
Wow. My first name's not Wolf, you know that, right?
It's Mike or Michael, right?
Yes. Everyone just calls me Wolf.
Wait, how did that even come about?
You want the real story?
Yes.
Or you want the fake story?
We're all about authenticity here, so let's get the real story.
I was doing Muay Thai, and I was getting punched in the face a lot. At the time, I had a personal training business, and it was Wolf Kind Athletics. I don't know if you remember that, because your brother was wearing my shirt a lot. He had a Wolf logo, like half clock, half wolf. Anyways,
I feel like I might remember that.
I was getting punched in the face a lot, and the coach couldn't remember my name, so he started calling me Wolf. And instead of correcting everybody in the class, I just started going by it. And I was just like, you know what, let's just do it. And then ever since then, it stuck, because people were just like, hey, dude, that name fits you. And I'm like, thanks.
Wow. Wait, I didn't know that. So I know you did wrestling in high school, right?
I did.
That was the thing?
Yeah, I did wrestling since middle school, actually. Yeah, since middle school all the way throughout high school, and then I didn't take it collegiate because I moved to California.
Damn. So when did you move?
From North Carolina, I moved here it was 2015, I think. Take that back, 2014. Yeah.
Okay. Did you plan on pursuing film, or did you already pick up a camera yet?
No. I picked up a camera beforehand because my brother and I were skaters. So we used to make sponsor me videos, and we just did one trick. It was just kind of funny.
I was into skating for a little bit.
Yeah.
Not that great, but...
But no, when I first moved here, my intention was to become a doctor in physical therapy.
Wow. I know you mentioned, you kind of started using filming as, an outlet for you, and you kind of struggled with panic attacks before. If you want to talk about that.
Yeah. No, I mean, when I first moved to California, I had a huge culture shock. I don't know if I told you that, but I did have a huge culture shock here where coming from a small town to a place where people vacation, that's a big thing to do.
Oh, wow.
And there's a lot of things that I wasn't really familiar with. The culture around here was the big thing. And then, yeah, I've never really experienced a panic attack before, or even anxiety in that case, because I've always been, just around family. Here, I was just on my own. And when it all happened, I didn't know what it was. And then, after a couple of them, I was like, you know what, let me just get this looked at. And that's when, I went to the doctor for it, and they were like, you have anxiety attacks. And I'm like, oh, so what do I do about that? And then there's medication routes that you can take. But then there's also natural routes where you can just do meditation, or I was doing research, and a lot of creators that I looked up to were using vlogging as a source of coping, because it put them in an uncomfortable situation, which, to get better at something that you're bad at, just put yourself more in that situation. And that's what I did. Was I started vlogging around San Diego actually in 2015, actually just a year later of moving here. And you can still see the videos on my old YouTube channel where I started very cringy, I kid you not. And yeah, that's what's kind of started this whole talking to a camera thing, and now we're here. It's pretty surreal. It's insane. Yeah.
I think everyone kind of starts off cringy, but that
but
shows how
cringy,
far
go
you
look at my videos. I'm serious.
Well, that also shows how far you've come, because having that culture shock and kind of feeling that anxiety of social anxiety and all of that, the fact that you can look back and you're like, well, I did things that were cringy, but you were totally fine with putting it out there. So it just showed how much it impacted you.
Yeah, even when I hit submit to put that video on YouTube, there was that big fear of okay, what are the people gonna think? But then I'm also there's so many people around the world that don't know me, and who cares if they know me or not? I'm doing this for me, right? At the end of the day, I was doing everything that I was doing for me, and that was the biggest lesson that I kind of took away from all of this. Was I need to start having a little bit more self-respect for myself, to where I worry less, and I do the things that I love doing, and without having a care what other people think. So that was one of my biggest takeaways from like all this. I mean, I still go through them. I still go through all these panic attacks. Like, don't get me wrong, but I've gotten better at coping with them. So, yeah.
I feel like that's the biggest thing is like I've struggled with panic attacks as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I'm wrong about this, but I think, have you ever passed out from?
Oh, multiple times.
See, I haven't experienced that, but I've definitely experienced that feeling of like you kind of feel dissociated
mm-hmm.
from like everything around you, and you feel overstimulated by like everything and like disconnected from yourself. But I feel like it's something that a lot of people definitely struggle with.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting that you were able to find that outlet that could get you through it. And you talked about that self-respect and doing things for you. That's something I think a lot of creators and just people on social media struggle with, is like just going on their own lane and like focusing on them and not focusing on what views they're going to get out of it or this or that, like just doing something for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And like they're always looking at the next person, like Mr. Beast or like all these people that can never really be replaced. And it's just realizing that you are unique and authentic and you don't need to follow anyone else to like get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of being yourself. Like flaws and all, that's just who you are, and that's your power.
Agreed. Completely agree.
And like, what do you feel like is authentic about your work? Because you do a lot of like, I know you do photography, you film for people. What do you feel like makes your work stand out?
As cliche as it may sound, I like doing the candid stuff. Like whatever you see online is very candid, and there's maybe like some slight posing here and there, but for the most part, I don't like staging things unless it's for purpose. I like showing what's real, like what the things that you miss normally. And I think that's what really stands me out. Like you can say the tones and colors of like how I edit the photos or the video, but at the end of the day, like I personally think I kind of strive on showing what you don't see, what you don't normally see, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Like things that people wouldn't really think into.
Mm-hmm.
Like all the little things and the intricacies, you make sure to pay attention to things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I'm sure with the music too, like your music choice is like a big part of it too.
So that was a big thing too. Like I grew up playing music. I played at Warped Tour. I grew up in a band, and music has been. My dad played guitar since he was young. So music has always been part of my life, and it's always been a road to take, whether or not I see it. That's why I have like this piano back here. I have my guitar over there. Like whenever I feel like I need an outlet other than creating with my camera, I just pull out an instrument and start playing. Believe it or not, too, like before the camera, that was my outlet. Before was just playing music, so I would write a lot of songs and use that. And music is just, I don't know. It's a driving force for like all my videos, because if you really listen to it, there's a beginning, middle, and end to every song you listen to. It's just not like a constant beat. There's always like a pace to it. There's a beat. There's a story. Even with like the lyrics, whether you listen to it or not, like there's some sort of tone in there where you can tell a story, and that's what I appreciate, and that's what I like using, especially when it comes to like my videos, is using a very, not per se an emotional song, but more of a song that has already the potential to bring this video up even more with the visuals. So
interesting. I like that.
Yeah.
If you could like talk about one thing that you really learned from like just being on this road, being in San Diego, pursuing your passion, what's like a big lesson you've learned?
Actually, I reminded myself of this lesson last night when I went to the concert. So I spent $100 on a concert on something last minute. I paid the price, but it was fun. It was fun. Do it.
You crowd surfed.
And the lesson, I did crowd surf, which was very fun. But the lesson is that I've learned from all this is don't wait for the what if. Just go ahead and do it. You are never too young, never too old to do anything. If you have something in your mind that you want to do, don't say what if, just go ahead and do it. Because like who knows what comes after? Like nobody's gonna know what comes right after, because you can't tell the future, right? You can only expect, you can only assume things, but assumptions only get you so far, because then you're just limiting yourself to a point where like you don't do it at all.
That's
so
true.
You might as well just do it and see what comes out of it. And honestly, within these, I guess almost a decade now of being here in California, I've done so many things to where I mean, which literally brought me here today,
Like just choosing to do something and going out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
I feel like that's the misconception people have. You don't fail when you try something, you fail when you don't try at all. Like, the person that literally doesn't even try because they already gave up before they tried, that's failure. Mm-hmm. But the person that, like, tries over and over again, like, failure is this word that we're all scared of. But the reality is, you have to fail to learn, and that's the whole point of learning. Like, you can only be good at something when you've tried every possible case scenario to get it right until you finally do. And I feel like that's something that limits a lot of people, mm-hmm. including myself. And that voice in your head, too. I learned something. I forgot where I saw it, but it talks about overthinking and self-doubt is always the louder voice in your head, but your intuition is always kind of calm and peaceful. Mm-hmm. So you'll know when you're on the right path when it's a calm and peaceful feeling that just feels right. And when you're on the wrong path, it's usually very loud and there's paranoia and there's overthinking, and you can mm-hmm. feel that. So really getting in tune with yourself and realizing when you have that feeling of intuition to follow it. And I feel like that's what brought you here today. Even us meeting. Mm-hmm. I remember the day that I was like, ooh, I've been following you for a while. I knew you were friends with my brother, but I had this idea for my brand, and I was like, ooh, I like really want to talk to Wolf. Weird because it's called Authentic Alpha. So there's that correlation too. But I really wanted to, make a brand that was all about authenticity, and I would see his work on Instagram, and I was like, dang, this guy seems like a pretty genuine, down-to-earth person, and he's really good at what he does. So I remember that day of us connecting and filming, I believe it was with Kelly for kickboxing, and ever since then we've kind of worked together on stuff, but mm-hmm. the main purpose of like this podcast and just what we're doing together is like finding people that are authentic and can really make an impact on the world. And you can just tell with certain people just have this energy to them mm-hmm. when you can feel that they're a good person, or they have good intentions, or they are really passionate about something. And you can usually just feel that from people, and like that's kind of what I want to do with this podcast, is really bring that out of people and be able to like impact the world in that way. So
nice.
I
like that.
Really happy that we started it off.
Let's go.
Today.
She started it, not me. I'm just there to support,
But you're the first one, so.
First episode?
Yeah.
For real?
Mm-hmm. I like how you're just finding this out now.
We made it, guys.
You've been on my other one. I started a series called the Authentic Alpha, like documentary series, but that really, I feel like that didn't really encapsulate what I wanted to do, because I really like this one-on-one interaction and like mm-hmm. the human aspect of that. So
I mean, if you think about it too, like if you really want to find or bring out the most authentic in somebody, it's more of having a conversation with them than anything, right? Because that conversation leads to many roads, but then also the roads that you are meant to hear, or want to see.
That's true. I would say like with a lot of the conversations I had that were interview style, it always felt a little off, and I think it was the fact that I was asking questions behind the camera, so people were just kind of staring at the camera while they're talking, and that mm-hmm. takes away like the human connection. Mm-hmm. And I could just feel like the anxiousness and just uncomfortability of it, whereas this one-on-one interaction that we're having is way more personable.
Well, here's another thing too that I thought about when we were doing the videos, was like with the questions, you were saying them beforehand, so they were prepped for it, right? For something to be authentic, you would think something or somebody to instinctively respond in a way they don't have to think about it. You know,
That's
does that make
true.
sense?
No, that's literally spot on what he's saying. So I would usually people would want to know kind of the questions beforehand to kind of get rid of the nerves, but then it did end up being kind of scripted, whereas like when you're talking in the moment with someone, it's very like it comes straight from the heart, but when you have like this rehearsed way of how you're going to respond, it kind of ruins that. And I definitely felt that now looking back at it.
Yeah.
So I'm like happy that I'm going more down this route because I think it'll be way more effective.
And that's just going back on what I said before of like trying so many things and you're going to eventually find the right thing, right?
That's true.
And that's what you just did right here.
What were all the things that like, because you said you were thinking of being a doctor of physical therapy, and
sorry, Mom.
I know you skated a little
Sorry.
bit. Oh, that's a whole nother thing too. Is like your parents' expectations of you.
Yeah.
Like that's a big thing that I think a lot of people like, whether it's society's expectations or your parents, like a lot of people don't chase after what they want to do because they think they're going to be criticized, or a lot of people are in their head about like, oh, well, everyone's telling me I'm not going to make it, I'm not going to do it. Like, how did you deal with that?
It wasn't more of like, what if this person thinks of this, or what if my parents think of this? It was more of I legitimately did not know what to do. I was like, I knew. Well, here's one thing. When I was in North Carolina, I was working out a lot, and I was working out with a couple homies, and I told one of them, I was like, hey, dude, I'm going to get paid to work out one day. And fast forward to today, that's pretty much what I do.
You're literally wearing LSKD merch right now?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, now I'm like with Ghost, with LSKD, and something I've never thought I'd even say, to be honest, like to be part of these companies, which truly blessed for them. But yeah, like, it was just that there was just that fear of like not knowing what I was gonna do. It wasn't more of like what other people think, because like I kind of got past that point of like, all right, I'm here for me. I moved here to California for me, and if I still keep going back to what other people think about me and making decisions through that, then I didn't really, justify my move here, or I didn't really make this move as much as I wanted to,
That makes sense.
I was doing it for other people rather than for myself. So that kind of led me, again, I keep reiterating myself, but more of why am I here? Like, what do I really want to do? What makes me happy,
I think that's the hardest thing, is that struggle of like finding your purpose. Like, I think we all kind of go through that, or we have an identity of what we think we are. And like when that crashes down of like, who am I anymore without this thing that I thought was like giving me my worth, you kind of have to re-find yourself and like find your purpose for being here, which is like, I know everyone talks about purpose, but I think it's that identity crisis that you have of not knowing who you are without certain identities.
Yeah.
And like for you, like having to step out of your comfort zone and be like, who am I? I need to go find myself by going to San Diego. Like, that was you trying to figure out who you are outside of probably your family, outside of your hometown. Like, who are you without all these things that once gave you value? I'll
tell you this. When you get out of high school, and I'm pretty sure, like, the majority of you can understand this, you get stuck in a bubble, right? Whether it's... So after graduating high school, you either go to the military, or at least for my town, it was either you go to the military or you go to a university, right? I did none of that. And I got stuck in a bubble where I was working a full-time job at McDonald's, and then I was like, you know what am I doing? And I just get a random call from California saying that I can go to school here with tuition assistance. And of course I'm going to take that opportunity, right? But I'm rambling here. What I'm trying to say is, don't get stuck in the bubble. Like, you can easily get stuck in a bubble where you feel comfortable enough to stay there, but then is that really going to benefit you, like, down the road? Like, most people don't see further down where, like, what they're going to do, right? And that's totally fine. But, like, yeah, you just got to step out of there and just take that opportunity,
There's this quote I saw, and it was like, how much did they pay you to make you give up on your dreams. Like, you mentioned working at McDonald's, staying in your hometown, like, that comfort bubble of, like, not knowing there's anything else out there for you, or you're just comfortable and you're making ends meet, you're, like, just above not having to worry about money, and you're just used to doing the same thing every day. But it's like, if you step out of that and you actually ask yourself, what do you want to do? What do you actually care about? What do you love? You'd probably realize you're not that happy. But if you are doing something where you're like, you feel comfortable and you're happy with that, that's okay. But I think a lot of the times we're doing something that we don't actually want to do. And it's only because we're so comfortable doing it, which is what you were kind of mentioning.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that a lot of times we don't realize that we're not reaching our potential, because we're kind of just staying where we've been for a long time. And I can say even, like, high school, for example, like, I really think the public school system kind of funnels you into this conforming mindset. Like, I can think back to elementary school. I was doing a lot of the things that now I'm it's rekindled and I'm doing it again. But, like, for the longest time, I, like, lost sight of my passions, which is, like, writing or, like, just connecting with people. And through middle school and high school, I just kind of started doing nothing. I was just trying to fit in and trying to, like, get my schoolwork done, but I lost passion and, like, I lost my hobbies. And I feel like high school can kind of do that to you, and then you leave and you're like, who am I? I've become like everyone else, and I'm just, okay, supposed to go to college, supposed to get my degree, supposed to work until I retire way down the line, and I didn't do anything I wanted to do. And I think that's the problem, is, like, realizing that if you're passionate about something, there's a way to make it work. And I think people forget that, and we're taught kind of to forget that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree.
But I also wanted to ask, because I know you struggled. I don't know if this was when you first moved out here, but I know you struggled with homelessness for a little bit.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, that was a couple years after, like, moving here. For reasons I'm not going to say, because I'm just going to keep that between me and the internet.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like, honestly, it really happened. It even started, like, before the pandemic, to be honest, because, like, I was living on a couch. Yeah, I was living on a couch, and my buddies, he was renting his couch for $600.
Wow.
Yeah, I did that for, like, maybe a year, I think. And then he sold the house.
Oh, no.
He sold the house. I was like, I got to find another place. And that's when I started living in my car. I lived in my car for about, like, a few months, I think. And then I'd switched gyms. And this was, like, I forgot what year it was, but I'd switched gyms. And then, yeah, the whole, it was just, like, a whole spiral of, like, I don't know if, I wouldn't, like, ask, or not even ask her, like, I wouldn't even, like, wish, like, upon my, like, worst enemy to go through something like that, because, like, mentally it was, like, very tough, because at the same time I was doing, like, my whole personal training business and stuff like that, and trying to, like, stay positive for my clients, but then also on the side, in the back of my mind, I was like, okay, where am I going to sleep tonight? Like, what parking lot, right?
Did anyone really know what you were going through?
No, not even those closest to me. I kind of kept that to myself, because, like, I had in my mind, like, I was like, if I keep a positive mindset, I'm gonna get out of it. I'm gonna find something. I just gotta take it one step at a time. So, like, every night I was like, all right, I'm gonna sleep in this parking lot tonight, right? And then the next night I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna get this for food. I'm gonna, like, save this for my money. I'm gonna pick up this client. I'm gonna market here, market there, whatever, right? I was in my mind. I was like, kept nothing but positive mindset, or, like, things in my head, so I can keep myself going. Because again, you can easily, like, dwindle down a road of, oh shit. Am I allowed to cuss on here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You can easily
authenticity.
You can easily dwindle down to an oh shit moment and, like, keep yourself there, right? It's easier to go down and stay down rather than go, like, climb back up, right?
Or to think this is maybe just how it was cut out to be, like.
Yeah. And that's honestly too, because my mentors at the time had similar stories where they experienced something similar of like, okay, homelessness, living in their car and having to build something from nothing. And I was like, maybe this is a sign that I have to go through this too. And I'm not going to get the same success as them, but maybe I have to go through this to experience to see what I really need to see, right? And that's what I did. I mean, I kept the positive mindset throughout the entire time, and it wasn't until like I got to my other home gym, which I stayed there for about 2 years, that one of the trainers found out I was leaving my car, and he offered me his garage, which it's better than living in my car, having to find a parking lot. I actually had a place to stay, but it was still sketch. It was the back of his garage where he parked his car, and then it was just like a little corner, and then the garage didn't even lock. So like I couldn't keep any personal belongings in there and stuff like that. And so to this day, actually, I still have like memories of, all right, there was no lights in there either. So I would work my ass off maybe like 14 hours of the day trying to get clients and shake some hands and make sure I'm on the right path of building myself back up. And then going back later at night, grabbing a bowl from Chipotle, and then going to my little den, my little hole in the back of his garage, and did that. It was only supposed to be for 2 weeks, but ended up being there for 6 months.
Wow. What was going through your head during the time? Like, did you ever contemplate like moving home?
No, not at all.
What kept you going?
I don't know. There's just like, I've always had like this positive mindset of like, all right, what I go through now is because of what I'm meant for later, So I knew what I was going through was just a little bump in the road. And then most people will see that as like, okay, I can go move back with my parents, or I can, take the easy way out. But for me, it was more of like, it's just a small bump in the road, Maybe I'm like meant to go through this and whatever, like maybe not, but I'm going to put all my trust in everything that I do. And that's what kept me going. And, the fact that I'm a type of person that personally sees more in people and more in the things that I do, in a way that I see potential a lot more. Does that make sense? So I saw a lot of potential around me, and I grew to trust that. And trust is a very hard thing, especially for me to like even give out. And that's what kept me going. But that only got me so far, because then the pandemic hit. And then they were like, you can't stay in your car, and my friend was like, you can't stay in the garage. I was
and gyms were shut down too, right? And that was your job.
Gyms were shut down, and I was very fortunate enough to where I can say now that the gym owner that I was working at let me stay in the gym and watch over the gym, and the gym had everything. I just couldn't turn on the lights because it was just like a big no back then.
But like you were able to have shelter and like a shower and all that stuff.
Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah.
So I did that for. It was crazy actually. During the beginning of it, where like you can't go, you can't leave, and I'm like, what am I gonna do for food? There was a 7-Eleven next to me, and all I got was like the $1 like roasted peanuts or whatever. Wow. Ate that every day because it was only 99 cents, and then I could just like chug on water. Yeah, that was it. And then and then I was like 3 months into that, I was like, dude, I gotta get out of here. I was still doing virtual, so I was still making some money, but I was doing virtual sessions, and I was like, I gotta get out of here. And then that's when I made the move of like, I'm just gonna find a place, whether it's like a cheap like rank it down place, and I found a spot which was really cool in the same area, and was there for like a good 9 months, I think. Yeah.
And you said
just kept going from there.
Your parents didn't know what was happening at the time, right?
No, they still don't know. I'm sorry, Mom, if you're watching this, or Dad. I'm fine.
What do you think would have happened if they knew?
Oh, they would have flown me back. Wow. Instantly. Yeah, they would have flown me back, or like, they would have definitely did something for sure. But I told them when actually they knew I got kicked out by the first place I was living at. and they were asking me if I wanted to move back, and I told them no. I told them I'm going to figure it out. And that's what I did. That's what I did.
Would you say that was, like, the hardest thing you've gone through?
The whole homelessness?
Yeah.
No.
What would you say was the hardest thing you went through?
Talking to my parents about it.
Wow.
Not the entire situation. Not the entire situation. More of like.
I'm like, that's in the future.
Telling them I'm fine, and like, I mean, which I was fine. You know,
yeah.
I wasn't bad in any situation. It was just more of like an unpredicted predicament. I mean, unpredictable situation. And
but, like,
that was more hard. Like, that was more difficult than, you know,
the situation,
the whole situation. So like, I guess you can see where my mindset's at.
Like putting a brave face on for them.
Yeah. Because
you didn't want them to have to worry about you.
Yeah, I don't like making them worry at all. Like, my goal with all this is like to take care of them. Like, I want to take. They don't even know it. Like, because like we have like a joint account and stuff like that, so they see all like my spendings and whatnot, and they always like call me like, "Are you good? Are you all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, like I'm chilling." Why? It's like, "You have no money in your account." I was like, "Thanks."
I already know.
California. I can't. And then my common answer is like, "California's expensive, guys. Come on." And but no, like, yeah, like, you know, at the end of the day, like, I want to build something where, one, I'm proud of, two, I can, you know, support myself, and then also, you know, take care of my parents, take care of my family back home, because they've done a lot for me, and I'm the firstborn. I don't know if I told you that, but I'm a firstborn, and they kind of expect a lot of the firstborn, especially because they're first generation. So coming to America, they made something for themselves. They want their firstborn to do the same, and I mean, to this day, like, I've shown them my website, like my professional website. I've told them what I do, so I like photography and videography, and they still don't believe me.
They're like, "Wait, how are you making money off this? I'm confused."
Yeah, I have to constantly tell them, like, "I have clients here, I've just signed here, I've just signed there." It's like, I don't know. It's. I think one day it's gonna get to them. I guess, like, if I'm on the big TV, you know.
That's funny.
I think that's when it's gonna really hit them. But right now, like, they're fine. They know that I'm fine here. Yeah. So, and my dad's pretty cool. Like, he's actually the one that told me to take all the opportunities, like, when they arise, and if you don't give it your all, then there's no point in doing it, you know. So I guess if it wasn't for like that mindset of, like, you know, him giving that to me, then I wouldn't have, you know, all the situations I've gone through these past few years, and the way I reacted to him, and like the way I responded to him, you know. So yeah.
Wow. Well, you have, like, some good parents, which, I mean, I do too.
Yeah.
But, like, I know there's a lot of people that wouldn't be as fortunate, whereas a lot of parents want their kids out. They're like, "Okay, we're done with you."
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like, I didn't really grow close with my parents like that. Like, and I guess that's why I've grown to appreciate them more now, because, yeah, I don't have a strong. I don't talk about relationships with my parents, and they keep asking me, like, "Mike, do you have a girlfriend yet?" I'm like, "No, I'm trying to do this right now."
Like, when are you bringing someone home?
Like, like I said, I'm firstborn, so I think they're expecting a kid out of me. Like, no.
Like,
Mom, no.
Like, to them, you should already have a family and
a house
all
and
of
stuff like that. Go talk to my sister. She's doing way better than me. And she is, like, she's about to buy a house and, like, stuff like that. That's cool. Like, I'm very proud of her and stuff like that. But what I'm doing now is, like, so different from, like, what, you know, because it, like, what we're doing, like, all this is so new. Like, becoming a influencer is, like, an actual career now, like a career move that, you know, kids think about nowadays. Like, oh, I'm going to be a YouTuber, you know? Like,
I think parents, it's still so new to them that they're like, "I'm confused." Like, how are you getting paid for just, like, talking?
Yeah.
Or, like, doing something fun, like filming a video. Like, I feel like to them it's like either it's the TV. They think of it like the TV is, like, if it's on TV, then it's legitimate. But, like, what is this thing you're doing on your phone?
Yeah.
So it's definitely new. I think technology just kind of, like, came out of nowhere and became such a big thing now.
Yeah.
And, like, we're fortunate enough to, like, have this opportunity.
And I'm sure they'll get it. Like, my parents will get it for sure. Like, and, like I said, going back to what we were talking about before, I didn't grow up, like, very close to them. And I moved out here not just for school, but to get away from them. Because they were very controlling of what I was, like, doing out there as far as, like, all right, you're going to go to community college here for 2 years. You're going to go to university. Are you going to work this job? Make sure you do this, you do that. And that was cool. But, like, you know, again, from earlier in this conversation, like, I wanted to do stuff for myself. You know, that was the biggest thing. Like, I want to create something for myself. I didn't know what it was at that point. I knew that I had a small passion for, you know, the medical field, you know, and it was, like, sort of in the right line of eyes of, like, with them. So I was like, okay, cool, let's try that out, you know. But yeah, like, I moved out here to get away from them, as mean as that may sound. But, you know, after a long time of being coast to coast, like, what I mean by that is, like, they're on the other side of the coast, they're on the other side of the U.S. So that's 3,000 miles apart. That's how much distance I put between me and my parents, or me and my family over there, to get that feeling of, okay, now I can start creating something for myself, right? Over these years, you grow to appreciate what you don't have, right? So, you know, I try to see them once a year, but for some reason, flights are super expensive.
Oh, man.
and I drive, but then that's like a week. I mean,
wow.
Right? That's a week. I mean, of course, I'm gonna take a road trip. You know me, but, like,
you already do that, but
yeah. So again, you know, a big lesson too is, like, you learn to appreciate the things that you have when you don't really have them, at least as easily, you know. So
that was me for the longest time, just being in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I remember asking my friend, I was like, how can you, like, stay in the same place your whole life? Like, how do you appreciate it?
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, well, it's, like, such a beautiful area, and, like, there's no other place I'd want to be. And it wasn't until I moved up to LA that I, like, really started to appreciate what I had down here. Like,
yeah.
the slower pace, like, being able to just find parking and, like, get somewhere fast without it taking an hour.
Yeah.
Like, I can get somewhere in 15 minutes that would take an hour during rush hour in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, just in safety and all of that, like, even the nicer areas of LA kind of are run down now, but my overall mental health just being back home has been so much better.
That's good.
And, like, even just having my parents and everything, like, obviously we sometimes take them for granted, or we're just like, okay, we need our space, but for all the things that they do for us, and, like, just them being there and caring for us, like, I really did appreciate that when I came back.
Yeah.
And, like, I've had just a fresh outlook on life ever since moving back home.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I don't know, maybe I'll move somewhere again, but for right now, I'm kind of appreciating the slower life in SoCal.
That's a big philosophy, or a big thing with me too, is, like, I'm a big believer that we're not meant to be in one spot for too long.
Like a nomad. Well, you like traveling, so.
Sure. I guess I never thought about that, but, like, I've always thought that we're always meant to be on the go. Like, you're supposed to soak up as much as you can around, like, what's around you, for as much as you can, as much as you need to, and then you just got to keep going from there, you know. Otherwise, you're again, what you mentioned before, you're just stuck in one spot, and you're just describing everything that's, like, it's supposed to be in a book, you know, like, it's picturesque type of thing. No, I don't want that. I want all the lessons, you know.
I think that's something that, like, I've always strived for, and I didn't realize till recently. But just, like, I feel like my purpose in life is just feeling alive. Mm-hmm. Like, finding things that make you feel alive. Like, when you listen to a new song for the first time, mm-hmm. and it just gives you a new feeling you've never felt before.
I know.
Or you go to a new place, like a new coffee shop, or just a new area, a new state out of the country, and you just feel, like, alive again. Mm-hmm. Kind of like when you're a kid and everything's so new to you that you're, like, stimulated easily, and you're like, whoa, today's a new day, and, like, everything just feels way more important. And I feel like you kind of lose that over time. You just become jaded, and you kind of forget to be grateful for the small things. But, like, just waking up every day.
Yeah.
Like, that should be appreciated. And, like, in every moment you can remind yourself that you're alive. And, like, that is a blessing. Like, your chances of being here are so low that it's, like, being able to, like, walk around and feel alive, like, that is, like, what makes life meaningful.
And it's funny that you say that, or it's like more, not funny, but more ironic that you say that, because before you got here, I was watching a movie called Radio. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
I haven't.
Do you know what it's about?
No.
It's based on a true story, basically. Not basically. Basically a true story, a movie based on a true story. Without going, like, too much into it, like, the lesson that I kind of saw in the movie, which was a very beautiful movie. Like, if you ever, get a chance to go see it, go see it. But there are people with far less than you that are way more happier. So you got to learn to appreciate what you have in front of you now, and be okay with that and be happy with that. Most people, like, nowadays, especially here in SoCal, they expect a lot because of you see all the opportunities ahead, you see all the opportunities around you, and they expect a lot because they if I make this move, I'm gonna get this. If I do this, I'm gonna get this. Rather than being present, they're seeing too much into the future, and then like I said, seeing that, like, what you have now, you should be happy with that. That in itself is a blessing. That in itself is just all you need. And if you want more, right, then you just got to do more. But, like, you can't dwindle down or, like, put yourself down because, like, what you can have or what you could have when it's literally right there for you.
There's this, like, I feel like this is a good question to ask yourself. Like, if today was your last day, would you be happy with it? And I think a lot of people, obviously, and it's good, would say, no, I'm not. But I feel like the question really means, like, do you feel like you're living every day with gratitude? Like, are you appreciative, and, like, did you smile at, someone when they walked by and you were just nice to everyone that day? Like, I think we go about our days not even thinking that it can come to an end at any point. And, like, we think we have days, we think we have years ahead of us. But if we really realize that it's, like, we only really have the present, that's, like, the only thing we're guaranteed, we would realize that we should be so appreciative for that. And, like, we think we need to be ahead, or we need to be here, we need to, like, do more. But it's, like, just enjoy the journey. Like, none of that is guaranteed. Just appreciate every day leading up to those accomplishments and those goals, because that's all you really have. Like, time is fleeting constantly. So just appreciate the moment right now and realize that that is a gift.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, I feel like we kind of get caught in the rut, and, like, that was definitely me in LA. Just because it's so fast-paced and everyone's just like, okay, on to the next. Like, I need to do this. I need to do more. Like, there's a lot of, which is a good mindset. There's that grind, which, like, I definitely needed a wake-up call at one point of, like, hey, you need to get your shit together. Like, you can't just be, like, waiting on the next thing to happen. Like, it's a balance of both, like, trusting the process and also being like, okay, this is where I need to, like, kind of, like, put in my work. And that's something I always struggled with. I always had this belief that, oh, things are going to work out. I don't have to really do much. And it always really did until, like, last year I struggled with my hyperthyroidism. And I had a flare-up, and it kind of affected a lot. And I was struggling with money and paying rent. So it took me, like, being in all of that chaos to realize, hey, like, some of it you need to, like, put the work in to get out of it. But, like, yes, there's going to be opportunities, there's going to be things that come your way, and you have to be able to see them, and that's trusting the process. But there's also that balance of, like, okay, I need to make a decision, and that's when I moved home, which has been the best decision by far.
I mean, it's a yin and yang if you think about it, right? There's no progression if there's no effort.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's that, I think that's where it is like, maybe things working out is like you're able to see them. So you have that perspective of like, okay, manifesting things is really just having a positive mindset and being like, oh, I'm capable of things. So when opportunities arise, you're actually able to see them. But then there's that mix of like putting yourself in positions to see opportunities.
And then being yourself too, with all that.
Yeah. And that's a big one, is like, I think we're constantly trying to find ourselves, but that's the beauty. I think I've realized every time I've gotten on a high horse or like an ego trip of being like, oh, I know myself, or like, oh, I know exactly where I'm going to be, this and that, life is funny and it kind of makes you fall flat on your face. Like, you kind of have to realize that like you're going to be constantly changing, you're going to have constant lessons, and you're going to grow. And some beliefs you used to have may not be the case anymore. And that's happened a lot for me, where it's like something I once believed is no longer what I believe anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you moving from your hometown to here, your belief systems have just like expanded.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like, what did you, back then, how did you used to view the world compared to now, would you say?
Well, pretty much I saw everything outside my hometown as a movie. Like, anything I saw in a movie was just what I expected. Like, especially when I moved out here to California, I was like, all right, dude, we're going to go out surfing, right?
You got the surfer voice?
I did. Well, for a little bit, I had, apparently I had a southern twang and a surfer voice at the same time.
Interesting.
So I was a Filipino boy with a country/surfer accent.
I can't even imagine what that would sound like.
Because to me, everything sounded normal. But yeah, basically what I saw was just like everything as a movie. So coming out here, it was sort of similar. Like, it's just more of a developed expectation or developed mindset is what how I would put it, right? And yeah, that's how I would, my whole beliefs. That's how like my views changed. It was just like a development, because like I did what you said earlier was, every time I look at my old videos, like my old vlogs, like from when I first started to like now, I remember like how I not only looked, but also how I thought, like how I would think about certain situations at that time compared to now, completely different. But then also, it was just more of a progressive thing, if that makes sense. It was just more of like, I took whatever I had back then, and then, over like the experiences that I went through, it was just more of like further developing that,
That makes sense.
So.
You mentioned like look like, was it like you didn't go through puberty yet, or like?
No, it was it's because I like cringy as fuck. I had like the little rectangle like Asian glasses. I was a little chubby. I had long hair, and I was like, not long hair, but it was just like a coconut head.
Coconut.
Yeah, because when my hair grows out, it's like. So I used to get buzz cuts a lot because like my mom would cut my hair when I was younger. So like when I grew it out, all it was just whoop. It's like this.
It would just be like on your face.
Yeah, it wasn't that long, like, but it was just like long, like not what I have now, but yeah, it was just. But it's crazy, like and things change, like, and history changes, and back then that was cool, and now I'm like looking at it like that was whack.
It is. We have to go through those experiences.
Yeah. To
find ourselves, right? I know you got into fitness. When did that become a thing? Like, when did it become a big part of your life? Because you said you've been a trainer.
2009 is when I started really working out.
Okay.
Yeah.
How old were you about?
13.
13?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was the first time, like, I'd moved. Going before that, I had, we had just moved to the small town because my dad was military, my dad was Navy. So we had just moved from Guam, and I wanted to join a sport for the very first time. And wrestling was the first sport I chose. And it was the first time I got to experience like exercise, like a team setting and stuff like that. And then, going to high school, I was like, I need to be in better shape if I'm going to be, I knew the high school that I was going to was one of the top high schools in our division of North Carolina for 3A, and or no, it was 4A. It was 3 or 4A, whatever. And that's when I started. That's why I spent the entire summer, literally spent the entire summer by myself, just working out in the dead heat of summer in a sweater, and all I was doing was running, push-ups, and abs. And I went from like 180 to like 160 going into like the freshman year. I was killing it. I was good. I was learning a lot too, but that's what really started like my whole fitness mindset. Because I was waking up early in the morning. Like, I don't know, like, I get up pretty early. I've been doing that since I was really young. Like, that's just an internal clock for me now. So like, I naturally wake up around like 5:30, because I would wake up before class in high school to do pull-ups. Yeah, to get an extra workout before the workout in the evening. And
what did wrestling teach you?
Discipline. A lot of discipline.
And by discipline, like, I know everyone has their own ways of like talking about it. What was it for you?
For me, it was staying consistent. Staying consistent through the lines of, staying consistent with the mindset through the lines of what it means for the team at that point, and for what it means around you. Like, being disciplined doesn't mean being like strict on like the time that you wake up. The time, it's more of it's further than that. It's the meaning, like, why are you getting up? Why are you doing what you're doing now, and why are you doing this every single day?